Alright, we're going to be changing the head gasket on this 2017 Chevy Malibu. The problem we were facing with this one is the head gasket is leaking oil externally, mostly from this oil galley back here on the back side of the engine. I'll put a picture up here so you can see. But yeah, there's not many videos online on how to really do this step by step. So I'm going to try to document this process as thoroughly as I can. And the first step that I've taken already is remove the battery. There's a bracket that runs here to here to here, 3 bolts, 4 including the one that connects to the ECU. Then you remove the positive and the negative terminal from the battery, lift the cover, take the battery out, and that's about as far as I've gone on that. Second step is to remove the cap for the coolant and drain the coolant down here into a pan. There's a little, the bottom driver's side of the radiator, there's a little petcock. Just twist that open from the bottom, drain your coolant. Make sure the cap is off the reservoir or else it won't flow. And yeah, that's where we're at right now. Okay, so the first step we're gonna have to do is remove the valve cover. I've already removed the engine cover and the sound deadening foam from the top. But what we've gotta do is we're gonna have to, looks like, disconnect a couple lines and maybe even the fuel rail as well. So I'll get going on that. Looks like everything up here is probably going to be a 10 millimeter. Yeah, okay, so everything's going to be about a 10 millimeter. Let's go ahead and remove fuel line bolts. Lift up our lock. There we go. There we go. There we go, and just like that. Now you can come in here, push, release. Push right on the red tab, pull. Okay. Now what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to remove this wiring harness. So we'll get all that done. You know what? I think first what we'll do is we'll take these little tabs up. Just come in here with a clip prying tool. Move those. We're gonna remove one of the cam sensor connectors. Sensor connector, the little red locking tab on it broke off, as you can see. So unfortunately, yeah, so they're gonna give you some trouble maybe. See, we need to probably unplug our O2 sensor. Let's go ahead and do that. That was a giant pain. This O2 sensor connector is not easy to remove. Then you can kind of start to see our wiring harness. Looks like we have a ground here and down here. So there's a ground wire here, 10 millimeter, ground wire here, 10 millimeter. So go ahead and remove these ground straps. I like to just put the bolts back where they came from, that way you don't lose them. And looks like we have maybe a coolant temperature sensor down here. Yeah, so this wire runs down here to a engine coolant temperature sensor on this harness. So we're gonna get the ground strap off there, and so ground strap here and a connector here to remove. So Got that ground strap. Just removed this one, put the bolt back in the hole, and then we've got our connector for what I'm assuming is an engine coolant temperature sensor or a coolant flow sensor. Now we're gonna kind of pull these wires up out of here and kind of fold them back for now. Then we need to unplug our injector harness here. It's this big harness on top, so we'll unplug that. Also, again, just has that little red locking tab. And then push and kind of wiggle while pushing. This one's going to be kind of difficult. Come on. Oh, well, it came off the clip there. Well, we man, but what am I gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to pry up on the inside there. Sometimes what you have to do is pry up on the inside of the connector, like that, and then push the connector off physically, just like that. Okay, now we have that connector out. Now we need to remove our coils. I'm going to use the electric ratchet to do so. Take these bolts out. Set those aside for now. Now we'll remove our coils, which is going to be difficult for whatever reason. Next, we need to unplug our injectors, so I'm going to be really careful when doing so, but I'm going to use some pliers. We've got 4 more 10 millimeters down here for these, holding them in. So 4 10 millimeters down here. Oh, sorry. 4 10 millimeters down here, taken out. We're going to need a 17 millimeter wrench. What I did was I put these 2 bolts back in so it would be sturdy enough to get this fitting off. But be very, very careful when you get this fitting off, because fuel is pressurized in this fuel rail and it might spray. So be very careful. It's gonna be yeah, there we go. Cracked it loose. So undo that. It's 10 millimeter right here for the fuel line. You can kind of bend that out of the way. I'm gonna put this bolt back in so we don't lose it. Just a few threads, just like that. And now let's go ahead and get these other 2 bolts taken out. So now we're going to very carefully try to pry these injector fuel line assembly. So with a pry bar, very carefully from each end, pry up, 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 up. And just go very slow, and eventually your injectors will come out just like that. Alright, well, don't be a complete idiot like me and don't pull at all on this hose here, because it is so brittle that yeah, it just fucking broke. So that's great. Don't be an idiot. Well, don't be stupid. Don't break your fucking hose like I did. Yeah, so these don't really come off. I mean, they do, but it's difficult. These bolts you're gonna have to remove. So vice grips or something like that, get these 2 bolts off here. This is what I mean. So clamp your vice grips on and remove those 2 bolts. There's one right here. This tube is broken, but it goes to here. And then remove this one as well. We got this off. again, take your bolts and just kind of run them back into place so you don't lose them. We're gonna take a little detour and we're gonna remove the air box. So because this hose is attached to our intake tubing, we're gonna go ahead and remove our intake tubing first. So let's go ahead and do that. Got this screw here, and then this one here to the turbo. They're just a flathead screwdriver, get in there, loosen the clamps up. And then you can kind of just wiggle that off of there. And then for this, I'm going to want to remove this bolt here. So to get that out of there, remove the bolt here that holds this hose on. That goes to right here. Remove that. And then get that undone. Lift up. Unplug these two variable valve timing actuators. Unplug the wires. Slide that out. Bring it up. And it's out. Next, we're gonna unhook the mass airflow. And I think we're gonna have to detach the clips here and here for that. And then sometimes these boxes just pop on out, which, yeah, it seems to be the case on the Malibu as well. Yep. Remove the intake box, set that aside. Okay, so now looks like over here, to get this valve cover removed, we've got these two push clips holding this harness on. So we're gonna just pop those out, just like that. And whilst we're over here, we're going to maybe try to figure out how to unplug all this. I think that can wait. We're going to try to get this valve cover, everything off of it as best we can. I think maybe, yeah, why don't we pull the turbo piping off? I don't exactly see where it goes. It goes down there. Okay, so you have to come in here, grab the turbo clamp for the ducting, pull that like that, and that should just come off, snap it back. And we're just gonna, there's a bolt over here holding that on. Go ahead and get that off. Let's see. Go ahead and remove this guy. This bolt right down here. Just kind of move the turbo piping out of the way. Put that bolt back in its hole so we don't lose it. Beautiful. Again, this wiring harness for all of our stuff on top of the valve cover, I'm just going to kind of shove back there for now, just to get it out of the way. And I think we're going to have to remove our vacuum pump here. Yeah, okay, so let's go ahead and work on removing the vacuum pump. So what we got to do is we remove this boy with two green push-ins. So push in, set the phone down for a second, over there, push in. So push in these two green ones, pull up, got that removed. Looks like we're gonna have to remove these coolant lines. Okay, yeah, so 10 millimeter here. Let's go ahead and get that removed. That coolant line. It's actually, yeah, this is a coolant feed line. Oh, this is the coolant return line. Okay, well, it comes off the turbo unbolt. So this top coolant return line for the turbo is a 16 millimeter. I'm just gonna use a wrench to take that out. And probably get it by hand after that. Yep. Okay, now just kind of lift that up out of the way. I'm gonna stuff that bolt right back down into the turbo so we don't lose it. Okay, now we're gonna snake this line around the alternator. It looks like I'm probably gonna remove that clamp down there, right here, and this clamp to get these metal lines all the way off and just out of the way completely. Okay, just come in here, grip this clamp. Let's see if we can't slide that down. Okay. So you got that clamp slid back. By the way, these are awesome. Hose clamp removal tool. Okay. Well, I got the coolant line off, but boy, it was not easy. So it goes here, which is a 16 millimeter wrench, here to this pipe, and then to this pipe too. That piece there. Go ahead and set that over there. Now we're gonna figure out what I need to do. So I think I need to remove this vacuum pump, which I was originally trying to do. Okay, so looks like there is 3 bolts. So one right here. See if I can zoom in. One right here. One down below. And then one, let's see. One back here. Right there. So I'll find out what size they are. So they're gonna be 13 millimeter. These two you can get to with a deep socket on either side. The bottom one down here, you're gonna need a wrench. So I've cracked it loose with a wrench, and now it's coming out, looks like by hand. And I'm just gonna sit here and get that out. There we go. Yep. Get it out by hand. That one is a tough one. I don't know if you can see it down in there, but a little difficult to get to. Not super bad, but we're still able. There we go. And it's loose. So there it is. Put that with the other two. Oh, and I forgot these bolts for the injectors. I want to thread back into the holes for them so we don't lose them. Got those all threaded back in. So now this vacuum pump should just come out. We're gonna need a pry bar. Set these tools back over there. I'm just gonna, yeah. It just comes out. Like so. Doesn't look like this was leaking, so that's good. A new kit will come with a new vacuum pump gasket, but it looks like this one wasn't leaking to begin with, so that's all fine and dandy. Okay, so I think there's only one more thing that we'll need to remove before we can pop this valve cover off, and I think it's going to be this connector over here for the other cam sensor. Let's go ahead and remove it. So I'm gonna hopefully not break this little red thing on this side. I'm afraid I'm gonna break it. I'm gonna use a little pocket screwdriver. Maybe I can pop the little red safety pin up without breaking it. Jeez. Oh, I got it. Okay, so now let's see if I can. Oh, all right. That one came off super duper easy. Now I believe all we have to do is remove a bunch of these 10mm valve cover gasket or valve cover bolts, and the whole assembly should lift up. I'm gonna leave this tube connected to the top there because I'm not exactly sure how this comes out. So we're just gonna leave that all connected and run through and zap up all of these bolts. Okay, so lots of valve cover bolts. The two studded ones go on these two corners over here. Don't forget, there's bolts in the middle here because this is an open middle design valve cover. And of course, all the bolts down in there, all the bolts back here, all along the sides. Now this valve cover should lift up. You may have to pry on it a little bit. So that's the next thing we're gonna do, but we've got all these valve cover bolts. Okay, so my valve cover, I think, is OEM on this one, and it was stuck with a passion. So I got me one of these long crow's foot wrenches, and I just went down right in here and stuck it underneath this tab and then pulled up just like that. So you lift up and the whole valve cover came loose, and then from there you can kind of fight it to get it the rest of the way. Okay, so as you can see, I got it out, just kind of wiggled with it. Dipstick will come out with it, so will the tube on top, and this is what we're working with. So this is the head. It looks like fantastic. So it looks like all of our head bolts are accessible without removing the cams. So we'll be able to leave the cams in place, but we'll take the chain off, which means we'll have to remove this timing cover. So, but before I do that, I want to unbolt everything that would be easier to get rid of before I have to remove this motor mount. So, AKA anything that touches the head. So I want to remove the intake manifold and the turbo. See if I can't just rest them back. And then possibly even this coolant distribution block over here. I'm going to see if I can remove that without having to go too deep into things. But yeah, so that's where we're at now. So I'm going to see if I can't remove that intake manifold next. I'm going to start with removing the throttle body and this wiring harness. So we've got a couple of push clips here and here on the head, and those 2 connectors, and then we'll pull the throttle body, which is 10 millimeter, 4 millimeter bolts, as well as this. So I got the throttle body off. This hose back here, this thing, pull the green tab out, like pull it up, and then it disconnects, and then I put the little green tab back in so it doesn't go missing throughout this process. Remove the throttle body. It's just 4 bolts and it comes off. The connectors down here are super easy, just unplug them. To remove this little felt, it lifts up, and then there's 2 push clips, one over here and one on the back side over here. So I'm gonna come in, see if I can't remove that push clip without destroying it. It's being stubborn, that's for sure. Got it. So now this little piece of felt comes out. You can see our push clips. That one's kind of mangled, but it'll go back. It'll go back in. Add it to the parts pile. Okay. So now there's a bunch of bolts to remove the intake manifold. I'm not going to remove any other hoses. I think it should be fine, maybe, as this, but they're going to be 2 10 millimeters down in here on top, and I think one. See if I can't feel. Two. Maybe just 2 on the bottom. I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, let's get those out. So I'm gonna use my electric ratchet. See if I can't sneak back in there. That'll work, but I think I just need a shorter extension. So let's get a shorter extension. Something like that. Here we go. Now we'll just remove these bolts. Oh, come on. There's one. Two. And then third one down here. There's 3. And then I'm not gonna be able to film the last one because I'm gonna have to do it by feel, but it's back. I got that last one. You can kind of see it if you come in from the middle here. It's just right here. My finger's on it. So you can get it right, up in here with the socket. Now, unfortunately, there's one more in the center, so right aligned with this, and then at the bottom down here. So I'm gonna have to fish in there and see if I can't get that out. Good news, you don't have to fish like way underneath here. There's a little hole right here, just below the intake manifold. I wonder, yeah, it goes straight through, and it connects to that bolt. So that is it. And then this should just pop off of here with a little bit of wiggling. So I got it. I'll show you how I got it. Came in from the front. Both my hands gripped both sides and just kind of wiggled it back and forth until it came off. And we will be replacing that gasket. Don't worry. You can see your purge valve is on the bottom there. Yeah, so I'm just gonna leave it kind of like that. And I think that should be it in regards to things I have to remove for the intake manifold. I think that's pretty straightforward, pretty easy. I'm gonna grab a light and see if there's anything else back in here that's attached to the cylinder head. So I think that's the block. We have to remove whatever monstrosity this thing is. I think it's the high pressure fuel pump, I think. So yeah, I'm gonna see if I can't somehow get access to remove the high pressure fuel pump back there, because I think it's also attached to the cylinder head. So I think that's what I'm going to try next, and then regretfully I'm going to have to dig into this mess of a turbo here, figure out. I know that there's 4 bolts for the turbo manifold, but I don't know if I can just take those out and then lift the head up, or I have to take the whole turbo out. I want to keep the turbo in there if possible. I think that would be best. Well, so this is the fuel line coming from the tank, I'm assuming. There's this metal bracket held in with 2 bolts. One bolt down here. Somewhere. Either that one or this one. Something like that. Or I think it's this bolt and one of these 2. Anyway, that comes out and you remove all the clips. One of them broke. That's fine. It's for this big fat wiring harness, these clips. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna crack this hard fuel line off. This 17 millimeter hard fuel line that we disconnected from the injectors up here. I'm gonna crack that off and then take the 2 bolts holding in the high pressure fuel pump and just lay it back in the engine bay like over here. So the 2 bolts holding in the high pressure fuel pump are 13 millimeter. This top one, I think I'm gonna need a wrench to really be able to get at it. So stick a wrench down, like a flex head wrench, down right there to get at the bolt, break it off, and then this whole high pressure fuel pump assembly should just kind of lay back there somewhere, get out the way. But 13 millimeter, excuse me, 13 millimeter bolts to get the high pressure fuel pump out, and then we'll kind of just fold it back out the way. So I was able to get the high pressure fuel pump off. Here that is. Yeah, so it goes right up in there. Got that bolt back in position. Just double check. Nothing is connected to our head anymore. Around this side. Nope. We still got to remove our timing cover and all that. But I'm just making sure that we will be able to remove the head. So timing cover's on this side. This side, I think there's not too much, except this coolant pipe here, which I have no idea how to get the bolt that's down there at the bottom. That's gonna be fun. Yeah, it's like just 2 bolts on that coolant flange down here. So there's one at the bottom and then one at the top here. We'll remove that. Then we'll dig into the turbo. So I'm gonna go ahead and work on getting to these. I think they're just 10 millimeters. Yep, just 2 10s. And that coolant flange, we can kind of just move over a little bit. Honestly, it doesn't even have to move very much because the head will just lift right off of it. So I got these 2 bolts out. One here, one is here, and one is on the bottom underneath. I don't know if you can see up in here. And then just get those out, and then this coolant flange kind of disconnects like that, and then I think I'm just gonna leave it there. I'm pretty sure I can just lift the head straight out and that will stay there and I don't have to mess with it. So we're gonna leave that there, now it's time to tackle this turbo. And I think I'm going to start with removing these shield bolts, which look like 10 millimeters all the way down to here, those two down there. So those two, this one, these two, and then I think that's it. And I should be able to get to the turbo bolts once those are out. Yeah, should be able to. So I'm gonna go ahead and so once you remove those 6 bolts, just gonna rip that shield on out of here, just like that. And then if you look down in there, see, I'll circle them in the video, but you got 2 nuts on that side, and see if I can get you in there to see. 2 nuts down way in there, and you're gonna get to them through this hole down here. Shouldn't be too bad. I'll tell you the size once I figure it out. So I got these 4 turbo flange bolts off. You do have to take out these 2 nuts, these 2 studs down here, and that gives us some wiggle with the turbo. But we're gonna have to go underneath to get the next. So we're up under here. We have to basically unbolt these 4 bolts here. One is for the actual flange, the exhaust that goes out the back of the car. These other 2 are for a bracket that supports it. These are also going to be 13 millimeter, just like the one on top. So let's get working on those. So on those, 2 came out with the stud and 2 didn't. So this is what we're working with here. What I can do, pull this. So the issue I'm having is that this inner one can be a stud, no problem, but these outer ones that are in this bracket have to come out. So I use another nut and I jammed it on there, and we're gonna see if I can break the stud loose. Oh yeah, by using the jam nut method. Oh yeah, no problem. So now we're just gonna back that out of there, get the stud out of the catalytic converter so we can get this loose from this bracket without having to take off the other 4 bolts. That was a little bit difficult, but here we go. So that is fine. And you can see why we needed to do that, because this needs to be independent of this bracket. So if the stud was there, there's not enough room to lift it off the stud, but we got that off. So now theoretically we should be able to just kind of yank the turbo back into position. So let's go ahead and lower the car down and I'll show you what I mean. Now we have all that off below, we should have more room to kind of pull the turbo out towards us and off the studs of the head. Never mind. We've got this, I think it might be the oil drain or the feed line or something. Below the coolant line, it's this line. We need to disconnect that because if you can see, it's holding the whole turbo in. So we've got to disconnect that, which I believe is a 16. I have the wrench here somewhere. We'll see. Let's see. Yeah, so it's a 16. I'm gonna get a ratcheting wrench on it and just break that loose. And it should have oil. Yeah, it's an oil line. Yep. So we're gonna break that loose all the way, and then this turbo should come out then. So cross our fingers. Well, we're not gonna take it all the way out. We're just gonna bring it back I mean, honestly, we probably could take it out. That might be easier. Oh, I think only this hose clamp is holding it on after that. Okay, well, we might take the whole turbo out. Okay. So once I got that line out, I was able to kind of just get in here and kind of wrench the turbo out. I think we're not going to remove it. I think I'm just going to leave it right there, because then you can see we have the clearance to just pop the cylinder head right off of there. That wasn't as bad as I thought. One thing is, on these lines, don't forget they have washers on them. See, the washer is stuck to the bolt on this one, but don't forget that they have washers. So on this one, there's 2 washers. One goes on either side of the banjo fitting. And yeah, so don't forget those, or else you'll leak. And also, I think that was the coolant return line. I think this might be the oil feed, but I didn't have to take that one off. Yeah. So it wasn't too bad. I think I can leave this wiring harness here, honestly. If I wanted to disconnect it, I probably could, but I'd have to find the AC compressor. The AC compressor plug down in there. I don't really want to do that. I think that I'll be able to do everything I can just with the turbo sitting in its current position. Yeah, that really wasn't that bad, honestly. Well, let's see. I don't even know what time it is. Let me look. Okay, so just checked my thing. It's like 4:30. And I think I just came to a good stopping point for today. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of cover this up and continue on Monday, because it's currently Friday. Yeah, when we come back in the next clip, I guess it'll be Monday. We'll be working on getting that timing cover off, as long as everything goes to plan. Get the timing cover off, the harmonic balancer, the pulleys, anything that's in the way, which maybe the power steering pump needs to come off. Is that even? No, that's the water pump. Maybe the water pump needs to come off. We'll see. We'll tear into this side of the engine, get the chain off, and then we'll pull the head up and off this motor. Okay, so since I'm leaving for a few days, covering the engine so no contaminants can get in there, it's a very good idea. So if you have to take a break, or you're waiting for the next night, if you're doing this outside, it is always recommended to cover an open engine so nothing gets in there, nothing messes up your work. Okay, we're back. So we're going to start with removing all of these components. So the first thing I want to do is lift the car up, get this wheel and the fender liner out. This wheel. So 19 millimeter for the lug nut, and we'll get this tire off. Okay, now that we have our wheel off, we've got to start removing bolts. So we've got clip 7 millimeters, 7, and then we've got T15, 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 and then probably 2 more T15s on the bottom here. I don't know what those are actually connecting. And then 7 millimeters there, bunch under here. So we'll get those all off, and we'll get this fender liner folded back, so we'll have access to the engine down in here. Okay, now that we've got all those out, we can kind of just pull our fender liner out. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take it and fold it on this side of the entire assembly here, just like that, so we can get access to all we need to access in here. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pull the serpentine belt off. You can see in here is the tensioner, so just get a ratchet on the tensioner and you want to pull up. A little bar in here, you want to pull up. Once that 3/8 head is in the tensioner, pull up, then slip the pulley off the water pump here. I can't do it one-handed though, but I'll show you once it's off. Got the belt slipped off. Now all you got to do is pull it off here. Let's just get that tensioner taken off. We have to take it off anyway. So it's going to be that bolt right there. Pull that off. Get the tensioner out the way so we can get the belt off. So it's going to be a 15mm down in here, just like that. And you're going to pull the bolt out. There we go. Okay. So there's the serpentine belt tensioner. Set that over here with the other parts. Okay. Now we should be able to just pull this belt right up and out of here. Yep. So there's the serpentine belt. All right, the next step is to pull this alternator off. So it looks like we've got a nut up here and a nut down there. I think there's two. I think there's just two nuts holding the alternator off, and they look like 13s. So I'll get a 13mm and we'll get the alternator off. Okay, well, I just discovered that there is actually a third bolt on the back of the alternator, way down here. So we'll get that off too. All 13s. The top one is a nut. The bottom ones are, I think, bolts like this. So we'll get that off, and then we'll just set the alternator back. So got the bottom bolt out. Did end up having to disconnect the connectors. So there's one here that plugs into right here. And then there's a 13mm for the battery cable that goes to the alternator, which just take that off. Put the nut back on the stud so we don't lose it. And we'll just get this alternator out of here. It just slides off the stud. There we go. Get the alternator completely removed. There we go. All right. Now that we have the alternator removed, next thing I want to do is I want to pull the harmonic balancer off before we pull the motor mount, because we'll have to use a puller to get at it. So got a 24mm, and we're going to go in here and we're going to get the, needs somewhat of an extension to get that out, but the impact just brought it right out. And we're probably gonna be leaking some oil, but that's okay. Let's get some paper towel and wipe this off. Okay, so here's the setup we got after taking the bolt out. We've got our 3-prong puller set up with a ratcheting wrench, and we're slowly going to keep tightening the puller until this pulley comes off. We've got the puller off. Now, it should just come out just like that. And now, while we're down here, we're gonna go ahead and loosen the bolts that we can get to, like this one and this one. It's going to be a 15 for the motor mount. Go ahead and crack that loose. There we go. So 15 for the motor mount, and then a 10 for, then it's going to be a 10mm for that guy up there. So this is the point where you're gonna need a floor jack and a block of wood. So get a block of wood, on your floor jack. Now we're going to support the engine from underneath whilst we do this. I'm going to lift the car a little bit. Right about there. It's probably where we're going to do this at. Slide this up underneath. May have to move it. What I plan to do, since the oil pan's a thin metal, what I'm going to do for this car is support it from the bottom of the transmission. And that should work a lot better for us. So we're going to apply some upwards force right here on the transmission. Just like that, we're going to apply some force on the transmission, not the oil pan. And we're going to... Then we're going to start taking out our motor mount. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so these two bolts here are 18 millimeter. See if they'll work on these two. Yep, these three are also 18 millimeter. Okay, there we go. The engine is supported by the jack and the jack only now. So go ahead and jack the motor up a little bit more. Right about there is where we want it. Let's see, get these two off. I don't know what size they are. Let me find out. Probably 13. Yep, okay, so these two are 13s. Okay, let's get these out. There we go. I'm gonna remove these. Set this aside. Put the nut back on its peg. Put that bolt back in there. Okay, so now we're going to take out our engine mount bolts. And we're going to kind of snake that through and out. Now that we got that out, we're going to have a couple more bolts to remove the mount that goes up against the engine here. Let's see if I can. We got rid of the two bottom ones for earlier. This one is going to remain trapped in there, but it's fine, it should still come out. Looks like we're gonna have two more 15s and a 13. So we'll get those out. So on this bracket, you don't have to remove this bolt, just these other two up top. And this one can stay in place because it doesn't go through to the motor. It just stays right there. So we've got this bracket removed right there. Now you can see we've got our timing cover free and clear here. What we're going to start doing is removing the 10 millimeter bolts around it that hold it in. We've also got, looks like this guy is going to hold us in still. So yeah, we're going to go around and start removing all of the bolts for the timing cover. There's 3 along the bottom that go up through the oil pan as well, so don't forget those down underneath. Yeah, we're gonna remove this crank pulley bolt for now, because we will have to, when we get this cover off, I'm gonna spin the engine over by hand to get our cams lined up so we can set our timing before we pull the head. I forgot to mention, with timing cover bolts, I like to take a piece of cardboard and the position they come out, like so. Imagine this is the timing cover. This top bolt up here would go here. This top bolt over here would go here, and then you go all the way down and so forth. That way, if they're different lengths or anything, you remember where they go and you can put them back in the same position when you reassemble. All right, so there we go. Got all of our timing cover bolts Looks like they're all the same length. The only one that's different is this one. This one, which is going to be our second down. So this one right here. This one's going to be a peg. Yep, so that's all of our timing cover bolts removed. Now we have to remove this one and maybe this one. I think this is a coolant drain, but I'll take it out just in case. And then I think we're good to try to pry this timing cover off the side of the engine. So got those two removed. You definitely need to remove this little one. It goes all the way through. And then this top one goes all the way through as well. So that's it. Our timing cover is now unbolted. There's nothing else I think we need to remove. I think it should just kind of come off of there. So we're gonna try right now to see if I can't get this thing off. With just a little bit of prying, I was able just to get this bad boy off of here, and it should just lift right on up and out. So there is our timing cover. Put that over here with the valve cover. So we got our timing cover, valve cover. Now we have access to our timing set. So we got to remove the chain, which should be pretty easy. I think what we're going to do is just pop the guides and the tensioner off and remove the chain. But first I want to set the timing, which it looks like it's just 1 revolution out. So I'll kind of get into a deeper dive when I've got the timing marks lined up, but you can see there's a dot down here. Let's see if I can't get a light right here. So there is, I think, a dot underneath the A's, and those have to be facing straight up. So yeah. All right, so in order to spin the engine off, just put the pulley bolt back into place at the bottom. It's a 24 millimeter, and just spin the engine over clockwise until both little A's are pointed upwards. And you can see we have a dot right there. I'll circle it, and a dot right there. I'll circle it as well. Then also there is a dot at the bottom. Oops. Show you that as well. If you can see that, try to get it on video. There you go, that's better. There's a dot down there on the crankshaft. So what I'm gonna do, or what I like to do, is I like to take a paint pen, right, and just put a little mark on that link where that dot is, and also right there on the cam, just to remind us. So the link that's on the dot, I'm gonna paint mark it, and then paint mark the cam, just like that. Now we're gonna go down below, right here, and we're gonna put a paint mark right on the one with the dot, and we're gonna mark that position as well on there, just like that. So you can see that you've marked the crankshaft mark with the chain, and we've marked both top ones as well. So now what we're gonna do is remove the tensioner. I wanted to say real quick, I did not drain the oil in this motor, as you can see. So what that means is I put a pan down below because a little bit will drip, but that's fine. You don't really need to drain the motor oil because you're gonna wanna kinda flush it anyway before you put everything back together. Okay, so show you here. The timing chain tensioner is out. It's 2 bolts. Both are 13 millimeter. And that goes for the timing chains as well. So just come in here, crack them loose. Oh, God, they're tight. This side is gonna have, it looks like 3 10s, but this side has one big 13 millimeter on the timing chain guide. So go ahead and pull that out. There you go, the tension is off the chain now. Got one of our guides, which looks pretty good. Put that over there. And we'll get a 10 millimeter. We'll get a 10 millimeter and undo the 3 on the front. Okay, there we go. Got our guides and tensioner out down there. You can leave this top guide in place. All we're simply gonna do now is slip it off of everything. Just like so. Take it and put it down with those yellow marks facing up. Also, if you don't want to use the yellow marks, this chain also does have pre-colored links, which I didn't notice at first. So that's got a blued one here, and it's got a red one for the bottom. Time to crack the head bolts loose. On this specific car, they're a 10 millimeter hex bolt, and I'm going to go from the outside in. So bam, 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 like kind of in the X pattern from the outside in. Alrighty. Whew. Yeah, that was tough, but got them all loose. So now we're just going to take the head bolts out, put them over here. There we go. Now, that should be all of them. All done up. Yes, sir. All right. Now, let's prepare to get this thing off of here. I forgot one more thing before we pull the head. There is one more bolt right here that holds this coolant pipe on, and it's a 10 millimeter. All right. I think I'm ready. I think. So we're gonna see if this thing will lift up off here. Oh shit, you got a problem. Set this bad boy back down. We got the problem. 2 13s. These 2 bolts are connected to one of the heater core pipes. So I'm gonna get this off. Put them back in so we don't lose them. There we go. Okay, let's go ahead and pull this thing up here. Let's see how this oil was leaking. Boom, right there. So there's the whole reason we're in this mess. So some of that's coolant from when we took it all apart, but I mean, it's just an oily mess down the side of the block. I noticed there was oil leaking out around here too, which now is just coolant and nastiness. So we're gonna clean this all up, but yeah. Guess that's how you get to the head gasket on a 2016 Chevy Malibu. Looks so small when you're actually in there, but yep, that's it. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm taking red Scotch-Brite, Scotch-Briting the mating surface. As you can see, I'm already finished. Make sure you get every bit of debris out of the pistons and clean thoroughly with Brake Clean and blow everything out. Make sure there's no Scotch-Brite debris or anything else in the block, and make sure it's very clean. As you can see, my cylinder walls have coolant, so I'm gonna go through and just wipe them. Just like that. Just clean them out. Once everything's cleaned up, we're gonna drop the head back on. I've already done that. Got it lined up with our pins, just like so. Make sure that it's sitting flush all the way around. Yep. Let's put this little bolt right back in here. It holds this coolant pipe. Put that bolt back in. And then we'll get our new head bolts and we'll drop them down and get them all torqued up. Okay, so just cinched up the head bolts with a impact right now. Not very tight, just one click. And then we're gonna go through and do our torque sequence, which I'm going to look up right now because I do not know. Okay, so we got the first sequence done. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So start from the middle, go up, then down, then up. I'll just put a picture up on the video. But the first step is 22 foot-pounds. The second step is 240 degrees. So I'll go ahead and do that now. All right, just finished up torquing them bolts, and wow, those suckers go on there tight. But yeah, we got them all torqued up. Looking good. Everything went smooth as expected. Thank God. We got our gaps looking mighty tight to me. Yeah. All right. Now we'll get that timing chain. So I reattached this bracket that I had to take off when I took the head off, and I put this bolt back in for the coolant hose. Now I'm gonna start reassembling the timing system. And while I had the head out, I cleaned up the surfaces here of the RTV from the timing cover, but I still need to clean off all the RTV down here. So I put paper towels to block the oil pan while I clean this RTV off. And you want to scrape the RTV with a razor blade, and then I'm gonna hit it with a red Scotch-Brite just for, all right. So I got the surfaces cleaned up, and what I want to do is I want to suck some of the oil out of the oil pan, because this is what we've got going on, and I'm afraid that's going to interfere with our RTV sealing the timing cover back. So I'm going to use a oil transfer pump to pump some of that oil out, and then we'll go ahead and RTV this time. All right, so I sucked some of the oil out. That way the level is lower and that can be dry while we apply RTV. I got to put the whole timing set back in. So remember, we made those marks on our cams. They may have moved a little bit during the process. It's okay. Just put a little wrench on the, I think here, put a little wrench on the cam. Just turn it until you get it to line up with your dots on. All right, so the next step we're gonna do is we're gonna get the chain hung up on our cam gears. We're gonna start by getting these two aligned with the bottom. So you can see what I mean. You gotta put a wrench on your cam. This happened to be 1 1/4. And you're going to lift up on this chain and rotate it until the yellow mark lines up with the yellow mark on this cam. We've already got this one lined up. We need to get this one lined up. So you can see that we've got them lined up now, but the cam rotates back because it's under spring and we have slack in the middle. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our wrench, hop on over to this side, and we're going to just take up the slack that's in the chain. We're just gonna keep tension on that. So we're gonna keep some tension. You can see the cam wants to spring back when you take pressure off the cam. So we're going to keep pressure on while we slip the bottom one to line up with its mark. You can see this chain will reach our dot right there. But what we gotta do is we gotta put the guides on and get it on the bottom at the same time. So as you can see, got our guides on. It's a little bit of a process. You're gonna have to take the slack out of here in order to get this guide on down here, the 3 bolts. But you can see that dot's lined up and our 2 top dots are lined up. So now all we gotta do is tighten the tensioners and then push with or tighten the guides. All we gotta do is tighten the guides, and then we have to install our tensioner right down here. So let's go ahead and tighten them down. Okay, so now we're going to have to put the tensioner in. So in order to do that, we're going to have to rotate this cam over here back on the. We're gonna have to rotate this cam back to take the slack out of here, and then we're gonna bolt our tensioner in. I'll show you guys real quick how to retract the tensioner. So we're gonna hold it open, and you're going to push the drill bit in like that in that hole to keep it sprung down, and then we're going to bolt it in. There is a gasket here, bolted down in here. 2 bolts. I think they're these ones, they're the 13s. So put the 2 bolts in. Yeah, just like that. We're gonna bolt it in. There we go. So we got the tensioner put in. Make sure that the chain is on the correct tooth before you pull it, which yep, and yep. So now you're just gonna pull it out. Pull the little drill bit out of that hole, and the tension should pick up on the chain. Also, what you can do is what I just did is I put the 24 down on here and rotated the engine clockwise just a hair, and the tensioner will pop out even more to take the slack out of the top guide and everywhere else. So, yep. As you can see, our marks are still lined up with how they should be. So our timing is now set. So now we can start putting on the... Okay. So the next step is to go ahead and get some RTV. I'm gonna go with the ultra black oil resistant from Permatex. You can get this at the parts store. Basically, what you're gonna do is make sure that your timing cover surfaces are clean and dry of oil. So we went through and we Scotch-Brighted all of the surfaces, And now we're going to go through and apply a bead of sealant all the way up and around the timing cover area. So we've got our sealant applied to all of our edges. Yep, all the way down, all the way up. So now we're gonna go ahead and get the timing cover and slot it back into place. We're gonna go ahead and lower this bad boy into place. Just like so. I'm gonna lower it no. Push it right into place. Okay. Now we'll get our bolts and we'll start bolting it in. Ready? There we go. Timing cover bolts are all on. Everything is looking good. Basically from here on out, it's just these steps that we did in the first half of the video, just all in reverse order. We'll go around and just put everything back together. Yeah, shouldn't be too bad. After getting the timing cover resealed, we're gonna put the motor mount bracket back on. This time reinstalling the alternator, and then we're gonna do the crank pulley, then the belt tensioner. Once the alternator is plugged in, we're going to install our crank bolt and our harmonic balancer. We're gonna come in here. So in order to get this installed, line it up with the keyway. It should fit in there loosely. And then go ahead and install your crank bolt. And then you just want to snug it down, and then tightening that bolt should push the harmonic balancer back onto the keyway. Okay, really quickly, when you're going to put the belt back on, I want to do it before the motor mount because you have to fish the belt through this bracket to the alternator and then route it around the crank pulley and then install the tensioner through the belt, if that makes sense. So install it through because you can't really slip the belt behind it very well. So you want to do that to make sure you get the routing correct. I'll put a picture up right here. You can pause the video on that if you want to take a look at that, but that's how the belt routes on the system. All right, I'm gonna keep putting this belt back on. All right, belt is back on, routed around. See, it goes through the engine mount bracket and then it wraps around the pulley and back down. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next thing. Next step for me is to put the side engine mount back in, which I don't even know how this fell in here like this. There we go. So I've got brand new motor mounts for the car. Basically what happened is the oil that was leaking got the one down there that connects to the transmission, so I bought a whole set, and I'm going to replace this one and that bottom one and maybe the front one too. I'm not sure yet, but I'm going to get this motor mount put back in. If you're changing the motor mounts, you have to replace the take the rubber grommets off the old one and put it on the new one. That's what the airbox snaps into. But yeah, let's get it put back on. Once your mount is bolted back in, you can go ahead and remove the jack from underneath the car, just like so. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to get this turbo mounted up along with all of its associated lines. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right, we've got our 4 nuts and studs tight on there. Now we have to go back to the top. We've got the 4 bolts tightened on the turbo. This piece here is actually the gasket for the turbo, so you need to slide this onto the studs in the back before you put the turbo back on. We've got these two nuts down here tightened. Let's see if I can zoom in. Those two right there. Now it's time to get our line down here hooked up. All right, so got that bottom coolant line reconnected down here. The top coolant line, we're gonna wait until we get the valve cover and everything else back on, because that coolant line runs along the top of the valve cover. But yeah, so I think that's everything associated with the turbo. Oh, we do have to get the shield on there, so we'll put the shield on there real quick. Okay, so that was more work than I'm willing to admit, but those bolts down there at the bottom, let's see if I can't focus. Those two that go into the heat shield are very difficult to get. So that should be it for the turbo for now. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is attach the coolant distribution block back on. Okay, the two bolts holding that coolant distribution block are now tight. So now I'm going to start working on attaching the high pressure. One thing, when you're putting the high pressure fuel pump on, this roller will probably have fallen out whenever you take the high pressure fuel pump out. This roller in here will probably slide out the hole. Make sure you put that roller back up in there before you put your high pressure fuel pump in, and then just tighten the bolts up like that. All right, so now get the sound deadening foam and the bracket back over the high pressure fuel pump. Bolt down there, bolt here, and then attach the clips into there. And I think that's it for the high pressure fuel pump. Cool. All right, let's move on to getting the intake on here. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take some brake clean and just kind of clean up the surface of the head for the intake, and then we'll replace the gasket on the intake manifold. There we go, new gasket, cleaned up the surface, and we're gonna bolt the 5 bolts back down. All right, intake manifold's bolted back on. Now we're going to install the throttle body. Okay, now we got our throttle body installed. We're going to plug in the connectors. Then connect the push pin right there. All right, cool. So somewhere down here, there's a connector for this push pin, but I don't know where yet, so we'll figure that out. All right. Now, okay, looks like we have to start working on getting the valve cover back on. So the first thing I'm going to do is clean up all of the surfaces where it's all grimy and dirty. And I'm also going to take a vacuum and vacuum out all this shit down in there. So, yeah. Okay, before we put the valve cover on, we need to apply a small amount of RTV sealant to the edges of the timing cover. So we'll do that. Okay, just a little dot right there, and kind of just spread it around. Perfect. Looks like there's a chunk in that one. Just kind of spread it out like that. Perfect. All right, we got our valve cover. Put a new gasket in. Got new variable valve timing solenoid thingies. These mate to these surfaces here. And yeah, we're just gonna set this gasket down in there. Thing. Next thing is next. We're gonna plug our injectors back in, if I don't spill gas all over the fucking turbo. Jeez, oh my gosh. Okay, we're just gonna put the injectors back in. All right, we got the injector rail put back in. We're going to run our fuel line. So the fuel line that goes from back here at the high pressure fuel pump to the fuel rail. Fuel rail line is installed back. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and pop the coils in. I think it's time now. We need to install our vacuum pump. So let's go ahead and get that on. 3 bolts, just like taking it off. So on the vacuum pump, whenever you're replacing your gasket, I've got the new gasket here. Make sure the screen is clear. Mine had some crud and buildup in it. But then, yeah, just take your new little steel gasket, slide it on the pins, just like that, and we're ready to reinstall. Now, once this is bolted on, you're going to want to first come in here, bend this back, straighten. Then this little green guy connects just like that. Then we're going to get our coolant line run over here. All right, so got the coolant line run, goes underneath here, around the O2 sensor, down to this hose, down here to this hose, and then to the coolant tank. So got that on. Next, what I want to do is get the air box in, as well as these pipes. In the beginning of the video, I broke this pipe, and I found on Amazon you can buy a replacement one of these for relatively cheap, and it has the better connectors on the end. It has the squeeze type, so in the future, if you have to work on it again, this will be a lot easier. Okay, so got my new hose here from Amazon. We're just going to tighten up the bolts and then get everything else plugged in. We should be rocking and rolling. Okay, so got all of our lines on. They're tight. Got those tight, this tight. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start running all of our wires. All right, we got everything plugged in. The O2 sensor, this tab broke off, so I'm just gonna see if I can't figure out a way to kind of attach that, because that tab broke. I got our cam sensors plugged in right there. Don't forget your ground strap here. There's also another ground strap down here, and your coolant sensor. Obviously the coils are all plugged in. Got the mass airflow sensor plugged in. Forgot one thing, I gotta plug in these. These are the actuators for your variable valve timing. Plug those in, get the little connectors on the valve cover here plugged in. I think, yeah, that clips into the head there. We've got to get this hose plugged back in, so I'll do that. All right, just a couple finishing touches I did, like put the pipe back on with its bolt, put it back on the intake manifold. What else did I do? Got a couple other things bolted up. Oh yeah, I bolted up this pipe that goes over here to the manifold, or the valve cover. Yeah, I think that's it. I think we're pretty much back where we started. Still got to put the battery back in. At this point, I would recommend doing an oil change. There may be coolant mixed in your oil. So I do an oil change, then drive it probably 20 to 30 miles, and then probably do another oil change. That way you can just flush out any bad stuff that ends up in there. But yeah, I'm gonna button it up, throw some more oil in it because it's low after I sucked some oil out, and then I'm gonna fire it up and hopefully. All right, well, it's running. I'm gonna let it come up to temp, monitor coolant level, make sure it doesn't run low, and yeah, there we go.